friends, it's Valerie. Welcome back to this week's What's for Dinner. If you are new here, I would love if you would hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. And don't forget to leave a like or a comment down below because it really does help my channel. This week I've got lots of good, yummy meals for you. There's some great meals in this video, but we have a favorite for the week, and it is the chicken and dumplings. We both loved it so much. My boyfriend was like, make sure to print that out. We cannot lose that. It's so good, and I definitely agree. It's amazing. And then we've had Enchilada Casserole a million times, but it is my other favorite, and I really enjoy it a lot. But let's just get started. I was really craving just some basic spaghetti, so I know everybody's probably made spaghetti a million times, but for those who haven't, I'm just gonna do a quick overview of this. I cooked up a pound of ground beef, and I'm just seasoning that with some garlic powder and onion powder. Then I'm taking a jar of sauce. I'm just using this fresh mushroom one because it's what I have on hand, and I use a little bit of water to get the remaining out of the jar, and then I just mix that with my ground beef that's been cooked up. I add in 1 pound of spaghetti noodles that I cooked to al dente in some salted water, and I like to add some cheese, so I'm adding some of this Italian blend. It's just what I had. Sometimes I'll just use mozzarella, but this blend was actually really delicious, so I just put a couple good sized handfuls in there. That's up to you, even if you want to add cheese at all. I also was just really wanting it with that powdered Parmesan cheese, so I put some of that on top. I served this with some cold beets that had some ranch on them, and y'all, just a piece of bread with butter, so good with spaghetti. I'm going to start this off with the corn casserole since it's going to take the longest. So to a bowl, I'm going to add in 1 box of Jiffy cornbread mix along with 3 eggs. And I'm going to use 1 can of whole kernel corn that's been drained, and then 1 can of cream corn to that. And then I'm adding in a 1/2 cup of sour cream, as well as 1/2 cup of butter that's been melted, and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And I'm also going to add green chilies to this. You don't have to do that if you don't like any kind of green chili. You can make this as is, but I always like it with green chilies. So add that 4-ounce can in there, and typically I add cheese. I can't believe I didn't add cheese to this. I pulled up a recipe that's close to what I always use, and I was basically making it by that for you guys. But I always like a good hefty handful of cheddar cheese in there as well. So I sprayed a baking dish. This is an 11 by 7 by 1.5 inch baking dish. It was recommended in the recipe, so that's what I decided to use for you guys. And I'm just pouring that in the bottom. I greased it, and I'm spreading that to an even layer. We're going to bake this at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes, and you'll see those browned edges at the end. And while that bakes, I'm going to put together this glaze for the ham steaks. I am taking 2 tablespoons of the pineapple juice from the can, and combining that with 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard, as well as 1 tablespoon of light brown sugar, and 1/8 teaspoon of ground cloves. And I'm just going to mix it all together until it's combined. My ham steaks are 8 ounces each, so I'm only using 1 pound in total. The recipe I have linked for you calls for 1.5 pounds of ham steak. It's no big difference to me. I went ahead and made the sauce accordingly to their recipe, but it worked out perfectly. And then they call for 8 slices of pineapple rings. I'm just using 3 on each of these. You do whatever you like when it comes to that. If you even like crushed pineapple, all that, you can put whatever kind you have or like on top, and then pour that glaze we made on top of that. And then I'm putting some cherries on this. The recipe doesn't call for that either, but I needed these cherries. Stephanie from Still Single Stephanie had made ham steak recently, and she's what made me want this. I will leave a link in the description box down below to check her channel out if you haven't already. And then because this was feeling like such a holiday meal, I needed the green beans that are similar to how my family always makes them for holidays. So the recipe I'll have linked for you, I'm just doing 1/3 of. So I'm combining 1 can of green beans with a couple slices of bacon that I had already had in the fridge cooked, with about a clove's worth of garlic minced up, and then a 1/2 stick of butter I put it in and it melted, and then some salt and pepper to taste. This is really close to how my aunt has always made our green beans for the holidays. It tastes really great to me. I love it this way. The addition of the bacon is just so good. So be mindful with your salt if you have salted butter and you're using bacon. Just taste them. And typically I believe she also adds onions, and so does this recipe, but that was just an extra step I wasn't willing to do at the moment, so I just did it this way, and I let them just heat up and cook down, get all those flavors all together, and they are so delicious. Here is a quick look of what that looks like coming out of the oven with those browned edges, as well as the ham steaks, how they look. Now, the recipe showed pictures that had their ham all like super browned and nice. Now, that's how I would have wanted my ham, so I think I'm going to do it up a little bit different next time and either fry it up a bit and then put it in the oven. Not sure how, or maybe a little bit longer time or higher temp, but I like my ham to have those nice crispy edges. But overall, this was a delicious meal. Of course, I love the green beans because that's what I'm so used to having them like that for holidays. And then corn casserole is so delicious. Of course, it did need some cheese for me. So if you want to try that out with some cheese, I highly recommend that. I haven't had enchilada casserole in quite a while, and I saw a TikTok of someone making it slightly different than I normally do by adding cream soup, so I decided to give that a try this time. And first I'm taking a large can of enchilada sauce. I'm using green enchilada sauce, then a 4-ounce can of green chilies, and here I'm adding cream of mushroom. I've seen people make it with cream of chicken. I've seen other people recommend using cream of mushroom. I actually had cream of mushroom that I needed to use up, so I figured I'll go ahead and do that. So I'm mixing it together. It's kind of like lumpy. There's little bits you'll see throughout this video where there's chunks of the soup. If you don't like that, you can put it in your blender or use like an immersion blender and make that smooth. Now for your tortillas, you're going to need about 15 corn tortillas. I like to lightly fry mine up. You don't have to, you can just heat them. That's up to you and your preference. Now to the bottom of a 9x13 baking dish, I am putting a ladle full of some of the sauce in the bottom. We're going to create that nice layer for the tortillas, and I do like to dip the tortilla in a little bit of the sauce or just tap it in there real quick. Now you don't have to do that as well. Up to you on that. And then I leave 6 of the tortillas whole, and then I cut the remaining 9 in half. And then I kind of place them as you see there, like 2 whole in the middle and some of the halves along the edges to complete that. And then you'll need some shredded chicken. I just do Instant Pot method of shredding chicken. I do 2 large chicken breasts. I put a layer of that shredded chicken and then a healthy layer of cheese because I love my cheese and I love it in my enchilada casserole. So I'm taking some Monterey Jack and some triple cheddar. I'm just using some of both of those. Now you can use whatever you like. Just sharp cheddar would be really good on this, as well as pepper jack is also good. And then I'm spooning some of that sauce on top, not too much because we do want to make sure we have enough for the whole thing. Then you're going to repeat that layer, and your last layer is just going to be tortillas on top, and then you'll put your remaining sauce on top of that, and then some cheese. Again, I like my cheese. And I haven't had this casserole in quite a while. It's just I get used to making so many new things now for you guys that like sometimes I forget to go back to some of my favorite basics. But I love this because we have a lot of leftovers, and it's so good as leftovers. Like the flavor is just, it's even better like the next days. But anyway, so I topped this with some of the same cheeses, and I happened to have some sliced olives already in the fridge like that I didn't use up from another meal, so I figured might as well use these up, put them on top. They were actually pretty good this way. It's not something I normally do. Then I put some cooking spray on the bottom of some foil and I covered that, and then bake it at 350 degrees for 35 minutes covered. Then take the foil off and cook it an additional 10 to 15 minutes. I like it served with some sour cream and green onions on top, and then I made some Spanish rice to go alongside this. I've shown that many times. I'll try to link that for you in the description box down below, and I can also do a newer video of that as well for you guys soon. But we really, really loved this meal. It was so good, and it's just one of my favorite things to have as leftovers. I swear it tastes so much better like the following days. I'm going to start off by making the sauce, and I am halving the recipe that I'll have linked for you in the description box. To a bowl, I am combining half a cup of barbecue sauce. I'm just using Sweet Baby Ray's, and then I am adding in 1.5 tablespoons of honey, as well as 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, and it calls for 3/4 cup of brown sugar, so that's basically a 1/3 cup plus a teaspoon, so that's what I'm doing there. And then a half a teaspoon of black pepper, and just mix that all together. I thought I was recording this, but I didn't. So to a bowl, I added some creamer potatoes and I put a half a stick of melted butter in there. I'm using everything but the leftover seasoning and some of Kinder's the blend, and I just mixed them all together to get those nice and coated with some seasoning. Now I've added 2 pounds of pork tenderloin to the bottom of my slow cooker, and I'm just gonna brush them with some of that sauce. I'm trying to get all edges. I'm just using a spoon. I mix it together, not a basting brush, but it works perfectly fine. Just go ahead and put that all over the meat that you have in there. Don't mind the gloves. My apartment complex was doing some maintenance, so they had to shut the water off, and I really needed to get this food in the slow cooker, so I put gloves on knowing that I wouldn't be able to wash my hands in case I got like meat on it or anything like that. But anyways, so to the slow cooker, I've also added the potatoes. This is why I decided to do these potatoes, is that I was going to do originally like some more smashed potatoes, but I wanted a quicker all together meal, so I knew that I could throw this together and cook it all at the same time and it would be delicious. So I'm cooking mine on high for that 4 to 4.5 hours. You can do low for 7 to 8 hours. This is what it looks like after lots of juices are in there. My meat was frozen as well. You definitely don't have to use frozen meat, and that's probably why I have more liquid. So I made sure to add some more barbecue sauce on top, and I cut it up and I stuck it back into the juices to kind of like get some more of that flavor back on it. I made some corn on the cob inside of my Ninja grill, and this was a quick, easy, and delicious meal. If you like that extra barbecue flavor, you should add some extra barbecue sauce when you're serving as well. This is my favorite recipe of the week. It's so good. So I'm starting off by prepping up some of the vegetables, which it calls for a cup of onion and a cup of carrots. I did do about 1.5 cups of onion and maybe 1.75 cups of carrots. I had about 4 medium-sized carrots, and I'm just chopping those up. If it's bigger carrots, you're going to want to maybe cut them in half and then slice them up. You don't want them too big. And then I'm using my Instant Precision Dutch oven, but you can use whatever pot you like, and I'm just doing like a medium-high heat. And to the pot, I'm adding a couple tablespoons of oil. And then my chicken, I'm doing less chicken than what the recipe calls for. I'm only doing 1.5 pounds, and I'm cutting it into some really small bite-sized pieces. And I'm seasoning that with some everything but the leftover seasoning from Trader Joe's. It's just like those poultry type flavors that go well with poultry or seasonings. And I just think it needed some flavor, so I'm really glad I did that, though. I do think it needs some flavor in this. You don't want to skip this step. You definitely want to season your chicken a bit, and you're just browning that on both sides, and then you're going to remove it from the pot and set it aside. Then you'll add in your diced up carrots and onions. We're going to let that saute for just like 3 minutes until they're just about tender, and then add in some garlic. It calls for 3 cloves of garlic. I just used the squeezed kind for what I thought was about that. Stirring that together for an additional minute until the garlic becomes fragrant. And then we're going to reduce the heat to a medium-low and add in 5 tablespoons of butter. I used salted because it's what I had, but it calls for unsalted. And then add in 6 tablespoons of flour. And we're going to just mix it all together. I'm using my whisk. This is a giant whisk. I got it from IKEA. It is so big. But yeah, we're just going to keep stirring that for a couple minutes here, making sure there's no major lumps forming. My pot was a little too hot it should have been a little bit lower. I'm still learning temperatures on it. But yeah, once you did that for a couple minutes, add in your chicken and any juices that you had on the plate you set it aside with. And we're just going to kind of get that coated in that roux that we made. And then we'll add in chicken broth. I added a little at first because I was kind of trying to deglaze the bottom, since I said my pot was a little too hot and things were sticking a little bit. So I did do that with a little bit of chicken stock first, and then I added in the remainder. It's going to be in total 6 cups. So a box is 4 cups, so I added an additional 2 cups that I just made with some chicken better than bouillon. And I'm also adding in 1/2 cup of heavy cream, as well as 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme. And the ingredients listed for this recipe does call for a teaspoon of salt, but does never mention when to put it in. So I did 1/2 teaspoon salt here. I cut it down and it was perfectly fine for me. And then I'm adding in 2 bay leaves to that. I mixed this all together really quick. I'm letting this come to a simmer. Once it starts simmering, we're going to add in 1.5 cups of frozen peas to this and give it all another good stir and cover it and let that simmer for 15 minutes or so. And while that's cooking, we're going to make our dumplings. So to a bowl, I've added 2 cups of all-purpose flour with 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a half a teaspoon of black pepper, and then 1 1/3 cup heavy cream. And I'm just using like a rubber spatula to kind of like mix this together. This is going to start to form a dough, so it's really sticky at this point. There's going to be a point here I'll just start using my hands and kind of just incorporating all those dry flour bits into it, and then it will start to become less and less sticky, so it won't stick to my hand so much. That's when you'll be able to form a nice dough ball, and then we're going to separate that into some balls for the dumplings. So it says to make the dumplings about 1 inch wide. I did half of that because I read the comments on this recipe and everyone said to make them smaller. So instead of making like, I think it makes 14 to 16, mine made like 30 to 35, and that was perfect to me. So I add them in. It says not to let them touch. Can't even tell down there what's touching. They're singing at first. It's kind of hard. In the end, I was a little worried because they did touch. And anyway, so now I'm adding on the parsley. It was 4 tablespoons of fresh parsley chopped. Add that on top and then cover it with a lid and let that simmer for 15 minutes until the dumplings are cooked through. And this is where I got worried. I saw them. The middle was scaring me. They were really on top of each other. Some of them seemed to clump together. And when I pushed, the middle ones kind of broke apart a little bit. I was worried. But let me tell you, it was not worth the worry because this is so amazing of a meal. It was so, so good. We absolutely both love this a lot. And it's exactly what I needed, like that, to satisfy that craving. And my boyfriend was like, we need to write this down. Don't ever lose this recipe. Like, it's so good. We need this again. And I definitely agree with that. It's just such a good classic comfort food. On this last night, I needed to keep it super quick and simple, so I just got some fast food. We got Jack in the Box. I like the ultimate bacon cheeseburger, and I've always loved their tacos, so I got an order of those as well. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you don't miss out on any future videos, and I hope you all are having a great day.